Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
After reading a lot of Greentext screen caps and seeing a bunch of role players, things that have happened to me seem underwhelming in comparison. It'd be nice to have a thread of genuine spoops that you've experienced with no embellishment hyperbole that you genuinely can't explain still. TLDR. In this thread, post your genuine spooky experiences without embellishing for attention. Be me, age 12. Best friend Tyler, also 12. Tyler's mom owned a horse farm. We lived in Central Florida, a lot of horses everywhere. Neither of us are into farm work or horses. Interested in the concept of urbex whenever we could find something cool. Tyler's mom offers to take us to work with her one day. Why not? Go around exploring nearby woods, meet a migrant worker named Carlos at the barn. He told us jokes and we giggled like idiots. Carlos was a cool dude. Carlos mentions abandoned buildings towards the edge of the woods towards the back of the property. Tyler and I head out there, look around. Try really hard to be scared. Tyler mumbles something about a horse dying there and it being haunted. Yeah, I bet. TFW, no spoops. Disappointed, we head back. Maybe Carlos will tell more jokes. Go back to the main barn. No sign of Carlos, we go out to the edge of the pasture. Sit on the fence, start bullshitting and petting a horse. Her name was Amsterdam. She was cool. Sitting and talking while absent-mindedly staring into the barn. Interjection. Tyler was like a brother to me. Every time I was a coward about something, he would point out all the logical and reasonable problems with why I was upset and afraid. Tyler was as ballsy as a 12-year-old could be at the time. With that being said, the barn door is open, really tall, about 15 to 20 feet. 2 cars could easily drive side by side through. Sitting there and petting Amsterdam and just stopping the conversation. See the shadow of a about 6-foot-tall person. No distinguishable features, just black. Jesus Christ.SMW. It speeds from one side of the door to the other. It didn't have feet. It just floated from one side to the other. It had depth, like how you would recognize a person is walking right in front of the doorway. It was a really thick, dark shadow. I sit there staring, jaw agape, not saying anything. Tyler's respect meant a lot to me, so I didn't really want to overreact. Look over at Tyler to think of some way to subtly segue into it. Tyler's reaction was something like, "What the hell was that? Did you see that?" Panic ensues. We sit there and I have him describe to me what he saw. Maybe 2 different pairs of eyes could form somewhat of a coherent explanation to what I saw. He describes the same, exact thing. It didn't have any feet. We sit there and spaz out. We try to think of all the realistic things it could be. We laugh it off, maybe we just didn't see his feet. We walk into the barn and go to Carlos's work area. "Carlos, you just scared the hell out of us." Search for a good 5 minutes, he's not there. Well, maybe he just left. Go back to the office rooms that his mom was at the whole time. Ask if she can call walkie-talkie Carlos. He left a few hours ago. He was on his way out when he told us about the abandoned stuff. Jesus Christ, it wasn't Carlos. We lock ourselves in an empty office room and cry about it. Some odd years later, I asked Tyler about the incident. Ask him what he thought of it. Maybe I fabricated some of the memory over the years. Explains the same exact thing as he did when we were 12. We agree that we don't know what the hell it was, but it wasn't Carlos and it wasn't normal. I'm not saying there's correlation between that and whatever dumb abandoned stuff was on the other side of the farm. I'm just sharing what happened when I was a kid. If you guys have any interesting stories, I'm all ears. I also have 1 or 2 more if anyone's interested.
I used to live way out in the middle of nowhere. Nearest neighbor was over 5 miles away. The mailbox is at the entrance to this reclusive community. Some people have to drive for miles and miles if they start from home. I'm getting home really late from playing Risk or some other game with my high school buddies. I was 17 or 18 then. It's around 2 or 3 in the AM. Stop to check the mail. Place is always void of human life, and there is nothing but an old street lamp and tightly packed together trees for miles. I get an eerie feeling like something is watching me. Grab my mail, GTFO. 15 minutes later, I'm at the 3rd street before you get to my house. I make a right. I get a dreadful feeling, like sorrow and sympathy come over me. I see ahead of me a pale lady in a long white dress. She is elevating above the street and giving off a soft white glow. I speed home. Get home a few minutes later. I used to live alone on a piece of property my folks used to own, so I'm texting my friends just to not feel so alone. I lock my door, sit down at my computer desk. I grab my remote control to turn on the TV, and I notice that before I even turn anything on like the computer or my stereo, that my speakers are emitting an increasingly loud ripping noise. I unplug my speakers, it stops. There is a tap at my door. I locked it, but I'm watching my doorknob and windows like a hawk. Tapping eventually stops. Go to bed hours later. Move out next year. Nothing else happened between then.
Here goes nothing. B17. Moved in with a buddy named John. We stay up all night and play League of Legends and stuff. It's about 3 a.m. I'm bored, let's go for a drive. Get in his old New Yorker and just go. We live in a populated college town. Right on the outskirts of the town is total deliverance rednecks and lots of woods. I've moved since I was 12 in the first story. Drive out of the town and go down this long road. Thick, dense forest on either side of the road. Singing to the radio, being obnoxious. Turn the radio off to start a conversation. Right as we start talking, we see something coming up on the side of the road. For your information, there are no streetlights and very few signs scattered along the road. Hasn't been much of anything but trees for a mile or so. Appears to be a person standing on the shoulder of the road. What the hell? Slow down just a little, probably from 60 to 40. It's a woman. She's holding a cardboard box with both hands, just standing there looking forward. Jesus Christ, how horrifying. We were still going by fast, but I recall she was wearing a brown jacket, had kind of stringy hair past her shoulders. John is a giant coward and starts freaking out. I suggest we go see if she's okay, maybe something's wrong. What a good idea. We drive for about 2 minutes before I can convince him to turn around. He gets over it and starts to listen to logic. We turned around and drove back to where she was. We drove for a good minute. I thought she was closer to this. Drive longer. I think we passed where she was. Drive back using a city limit sign or something of that effect as a landmark. Drive to and from sign 2 or 3 times looking for this woman. She's gone. She's just gone. He stops the car and we are just awestruck. He's really spooked, just a little more than me. I get out of the car, half to screw with him, half just out of curiosity. Get out and walk around a little. Hear noise in the woods, sounds a lot like footsteps. Needless to say, I jumped in the car and we fled. I lost a flip-flop from running so fast we didn't bother to go back. We were both shaking like crazy once we got back to the apartment.
I've got 2 that aren't too spoopy, but still otherwise inexplicable to me. Probably TLDR, be about 8 or 9 years old. Spending the night at a friend's house, she's the same age. Normal elementary schooler bedtime, probably like 10 p.m. We're both in her room, she's in one bed, and I'm in the adjacent, which is normally where her older sister would be, but sister's out at a party or something, getting ready to fall asleep. But holy hell, it's annoyingly bright. Can't sleep to that. It's that blue light on the wall. Wait, what is that? Ask a friend. She sees it too. Start to search for the source. Blinds are drawn. None of the electronics with digital displays are blue. TV's off. No toys that produce light. Wrong angle to be coming from under the door. We're standing on the beds, moving around trying to cast a shadow in this light without getting close to it by blocking its source. Can't. Seems like the light is coming into the room at a really steep angle, like through the ceiling. She nopes out to get her mom. I follow because I'm a coward. Cliché ending. It's gone by the time her mom gets there. We don't talk about it much now. More recently, a few months ago, late autumn, early night, probably 9 or 10 p.m., but dark because it's cloudy. Taking a stroll around the neighborhood with Dad enjoying the cooler weather and bullshitting about whatever. Suddenly, a really bright orange-ish light appears for just a few seconds, about 15 feet over our heads. Looks like a bird swooped down and combusted, and then disappeared, except moving way too fast and didn't make any sound whatsoever. No streetlights nearby for it to have been illuminated by a bulb. It must have produced its own light. Start freaking out. Dad starts freaking out. He doesn't even believe in this stuff. Start freaking out more. We eventually decided someone was probably burning trash, and it got picked up by the wind and occasionally rekindled. It wasn't windy, but whatever.
Be in a group of about 8 or 9 anons. Be around 17. Frequent a local cemetery, one night a week at the very least for 2 or 3 years. A very old cemetery in the city, well kept, many socialites and historical figures interred there. Not looking for spoops, just a nice place to smoke and bullshit. Like the parks, the cemetery is closed during the night. Unlike the parks, police rarely roll through, patrolled some nights by a single security guard maintenance dude, the gravedigger. Rolls around in a big white diesel truck with a yellow emergency light on top, which, for whatever reason, was on even if his headlights weren't. Can hear the power stroke from halfway across the cemetery. Often mess with the gravedigger. Try to nope him out, usually with great success. Cause no damage, make little noise, respect memory of the dead. One night chillin' in Zelda Land. It's a family plot that much resembles something you might see in the top-down perspective Zelda games. See yellow light, rolling through the trees perpendicular to my line of sight about 100 yards in the distance. Not sure if the gravedigger or a car traveling the avenue on the other side of the fence. It veers in our general direction, which can only mean it's the gravedigger. This is going to be good. About to alert the rest of the group that the gravedigger has arrived, but I stop myself and continue to watch. The light is still traveling in our general direction, closer now, maybe 50 yards, but I can't hear the diesel. Still watching, the rest of the group has noticed I'm on alert and fallen silent, following my focal point trying to pinpoint what I'm assessing. The light's still moving, still no diesel song. The light makes a sudden, sharp turn and starts traveling in the direction it was when I first spotted it, to my left. At 3 or 4 times its original speed. Can see the light shining on the trees. Realize the light is not on a road, but blasting its way through a heavily wooded section of the yard. 3 or 4 foot long light trail following its source. This is definitely not the gravedigger. Look over. Can see in an anon's face that he sees it too. We gotta go. Don't I even get the whole sentence out before I was over Zelda Land's hedges sprinting across the graveyard. Chill out and finished up the night. Never saw the gravedigger. Spent a lot of time in that cemetery. The only relatively spoopy thing we ever encountered.
I got one. Working in a bar. The bar is over 200 years old. 3-story building. Old rifles, cavalry swords, memorabilia, paintings, war medals on the walls. The ground floor is the main bar. 2nd floor is a bistro. 3rd is a suite. No one but my boss has access to that part. Work on the 2nd floor all the time. Boss knows I smoke bud and worries I'll screw something up. Get called in for my 2nd shift, doing bar prep. Go upstairs, set up, and wait for the waitress. The stairs to the suite are about 20 feet from the bar. Walk past in order to move an unnecessary amount of chairs for bookings because my boss is an asshole. Immediately feel uneasy and tense. Sweating profusely and feeling like I'm being tailed and watched. Instinctively look towards the direction I feel the threat coming from. A lady in her mid-20s in a cream-colored blouse and nightie just calmly staring at me. My gut is telling me something is seriously wrong. Nod to her and get out of there or I'll get in trouble for being idle. Fast forward 6 hours to closing time. Boss asks how I'm managing the bar. I say something like, yeah, it's all right. Customers weren't too bad, except the guy who smelled like piss and that random on the stairs in her nightie. Boss tells me it's extremely important not to tell the other staff or it'll upset them and never to mention it again. Apparently this bar used to house post-colonial families and all sorts of shady things happened during the building's construction. To the extent where there's underground passages that lead to massive storm drains and boat docks.
Okay, here's mine. Nothing paranormal though. B10. I live in a small city, one of those places where you know everyone. Doing some shopping with Mum. Bored as hell, sit on a small bench outside while Mum tries some dresses. A middle-aged woman approaches me. Starts talking with me. I only give short answers like yes or no, because don't talk with strangers. Mother is taking too long, and since the woman doesn't look threatening, I start talking too. Asks random stuff like, how's school going, if I have any girlfriends. The usual stuff you ask a little kid. The woman seems very nice, although I don't like her smell. It's like a very sweet scent. Says she's leaving at some point. Just as she leaves, my mother comes out of the shop and we walk to the car. See the woman at least once. She looks at me and acts as if she was hiding and smiles. Go home. 2 days later, I'm with my father at home. Someone knocks at the door. Open the door. It's the woman. Father's in the basement, so I stand at the door speaking with the woman. Asks if I want to go out for a walk with her. I can't. I have to help my father. Smiles. It's okay, maybe another day, and leaves. As a lonely child, I'm pretty happy because I made a new friend. In the following weeks, she comes to my house like 3 more times for short periods of time. She always comes when I'm alone or when my parents are very busy. Always asks if I want to go for a walk. For one reason or another, I always tell her I can't, although I'd like to. Tell my parents about my new friend. Since they've never seen her, they think it's just an imaginary friend. One rainy evening, Mum is out with her friend and my father is working. The woman knocks on the door, inviting her to come in. Oh God, the smell is too strong today. Stays for a while. At some point she asks if I'd like to meet some kids because she says she has a few kids. That'd be cool. A few minutes later, someone knocks on the door. Open door, it's a 50-something-year-old fat man with a beard and a cap. Ignores me and looks at the woman. Looks angry. It's late. The woman stands up and almost runs towards the door, smiles at me and leaves with the other man. Mom arrives a minute later or so. Who were those guys? The woman was my friend. I don't know the man. Mother freaks out, calls father. Father arrives half an hour later. Ask me all sorts of questions, tell them everything about the woman. They're both angry. The next day, have to tell everything again to a policewoman. Parents are angry at me for the next few weeks, never see the woman again. As I found out later, a couple of kids were missing around the area. Sometime later, a kid came back home after a few days of being missing and told her parents she had been with other kids and 3 older people, 2 women and a man. She said she went with them because the man looked very nice and she had a good time with the other kids. I'm not sure if the woman was trying to kidnap me. She could have for sure, but the thought makes me shiver.
Be me around 7. Go to bed like usual. Get up at night because I need to use the bathroom. Hear something odd. Look over to see a figure standing in my doorway. The figure looks like my mom's outline but is completely black. Call out to my mom. The figure just stands in the doorway. Call out to mom again asking if she's okay. Hear my mom snoring from her bedroom. Throw myself under covers because kid logic says covers protect you. Scream for my mom over and over. She comes and pulls off my covers, telling me it was a dream. I'm still not really sure what happened. I saw and heard other things in this house as well, but this was by far the scariest occurrence. I always told myself I must have just imagined it or something silly. At the time, my mom always pretended she didn't hear or see anything and that my sister and I just imagined things, like kids do. Now that we are adults, my mom has admitted to having some really scary experiences there herself at that house, so I still don't really know what to think.
I'm awful at Greentext, so sorry for the formatting. B6 and on a bus going home with Grandma. Grandma lives around 20 miles outside of town, and the closest neighbor is a mile away. Grandma is talking to her friend, while I suddenly hear a psst, psst coming from behind me, and someone taps my shoulder. A 40-something-year-old guy with brown, scraggly hair down to his shoulders and heavily used wire brush for a beard. The guy is popping sugar cubes in his face like there is no tomorrow. Look like the type you put in coffee. He offers me some. Little shit.jpg. I accept and say thanks. Turn around and put it in my shirt pocket. I got better things to eat at home. Not even a minute later, he tries to give me some more. No thanks. Over the next 3 minutes, he made another 10 or so attempts at giving me sugar. My stop is here. Thank God that guy is annoying. Get off the bus and go home. Open the cube wrapping it home and Grandpa asks where I got it from. When he hears about the guy on the bus, He grabs it out of my hands and throws it out of the window. The rest of the day goes as normal, except at night. Grandpa locks the doors for the first time in years. He was still sitting by the kitchen window with a cup of coffee when I went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I hear tapping on the window next to my bed. I silently freak out. It's that guy outside my window looking right at me and gesturing to me to come outside, all with a big smile on his face as he is hunched over and leaning onto the window with his left arm. How did you find me? What do you want? All these questions are racing through my head. I'm scared as hell now, and I jump out of my bed and run into my grandparents' room and sleep on the carpet next to their bed because I don't want to wake them. I fall asleep after some time, and the man was still tapping on the window in my room for most of that time. In the morning, my grandfather called me to come and see something. It's a trail of sugar cubes leading from my front door into the nearby forest. My grandfather called the neighbors. One of them brought a double barrel. My grandpa grabbed an axe and they went looking for him. They came back all tired and dirty late in the evening and said they didn't find a trace of him. Now I don't know anything for sure, whether they got him or they didn't, as it never came up again. Now 14 years later, Grandpa has been disabled and in a wheelchair for a few years after a stroke he suffered. Can barely form basic sentences, so conversation is almost impossible.
8-ish years old, sleeping, wake up in cold sweat, heart pounding, terrified. Must have been a bad dream, can't really remember it though. Suddenly hear a low growling sound. Look over at the desk where a small fluorescent lamp is always on because I'm scared of the dark. The lamp is on, but there's a kind of shadow under it where the brightest spot should be. Growling gets louder, rises into a ragged snarl, very close to pissing my pants, can't move, can't breathe. 2 slits of red light appear in the weird pool of darkness, open into angry eyes. Suddenly a loud noise, wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, terrified, immediately look at the desk lamp. It's on, buzzing very quietly like normal, nothing there. Jesus, what a nightmare. Hear a quiet noise by the door, look fast, but it's just my dog nosing his way in. Roll over, reach out to scratch his head. Angry growl, same sound from the dream, coming from my dog. Pins and needles all over, can't breathe. Lips curl back from his teeth. Hear a vicious snarl, the likes of which this dog has never made before in his life. He's not looking at me. He's looking at the lamp. He starts forward and barks loud as shit. Suddenly the blinds on my window slam into the frame, like when the window is open and someone opens a door in the house. Makes me jump into a sitting position on my bed looking around my room. Still can't breathe or I'd be screaming. The dog ambles into the room, perfectly happy and normal. Heart rate begins to fall closer to normal and I can breathe again. Eventually gather up courage to check the window, solidly closed. And that's how my dog saved me from something. I never liked that dog much because I was a shithead kid. Wish I'd been nicer to him now.
This all takes place over a couple months and ends just the other day. Please bear with me. My best friend is the stepson of the landlord of a fairly nice house. Tenants, all respectable young folk except for one idiot named Tara. Tara is a puffy-faced woman in her mid-20s who looks quite uneducated, has a drug dealer boyfriend. Think of the visual representation of the definition of white trash, no offense to any of you out there. She drives and often takes us to get food or drinks. Harmless civility. Find out some other weirdo pays her rent for seemingly no reason. At the house all the time, and almost every night she gets shit-faced and makes a fool of herself, yelling, screaming, falling, breaking down into tears, etc. She falls deeper into addictions of various types. One day my best friend called me and explained that Tara had to be carried out of the house by paramedics because she huffed a large quantity of paint and then cut herself deeply with a kitchen knife. Wow, damn .png. The next couple of days she is in the hospital and things left at the house go missing. Lose a thing of whiskey we got hours before. Lose cigarettes and realize small amounts of change go missing. Check her filthy, disgusting room for her. In case she came back from the hospital, nothing. She finally returns. Weeks pass and she purchases a dog, promptly lets the dog wander around the house unattended with her door closed. The dog is a small puppy without proper discipline or training, poops and pees on everything. Other tenants, of course, would rather not live in that filth. They try to explain this simple concept, but they just mentally can't accept that it is undesirable to have poop and urine on everything. But we clean it up when you point it out, Tara asserts. Tara's relationship with the other tenants deteriorates. She is told she must move out. As she is packing, sitting in her room high and watching Netflix, me and my friends and tenants are hanging out smoking. Tara storms in the room, screams some furious babble in another language, then stomps off. Way.wbm. Her last acts of defiance are making food in portions she could not finish with other people's food and pouring perfectly good milk down the drain. Find some feces behind a couch from the dog. Tell Tara so she can clean it. She bursts out of her room. Why don't I just kill the dog? Would that make you happy? Big argument with everyone. She eventually has to be locked out of the house while the tenants move all her stuff out on the porch. Help clean her room out. This is where things get weird, followed by weirder. Sorry if this is long and dumb. Black fluid everywhere, soaked into all her stuff. Strange odor, unplaceable weird stench, and dog feces. There was old dog feces in her bed. Find a bunch of stolen stuff. Find stuff that went missing while she was still in the hospital in her closet. .og. Find a journal. One entry about how she messed up all the chances she was given to her, but that was her destiny, and something she must do. Another about her numerous helpers that tidied up and got her presents. Found film photographs of myself, my friend, and other tenants. Found another kitchen knife by her bed. When her family came to pick up her things, the dog was mentioned. What dog? I really hope that dog made it to a pound.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.